What's going on, fellas? The United States presidential election. You thought it was over, right? Well, not really. We're already gearing up for 2024, and some people in government are already taking the first steps towards a campaign. So, without further ado, let's start with the Republicans. So, the obvious one is the man himself, Donald Trump. Before 2021, Trump had told his top aides that he did plan on running again in 2024, even though he was contesting the results of the 2020 election. However, he would have a couple of obstacles to overcome to even get the nomination this time around. After the pro-Trump mob stormed the Capitol, Trump was suspended from Twitter forever for inciting violence and indefinitely suspended from Facebook and Instagram. Trump's social media presence helped elevate him to the status he had in the political spectrum. Even though he reached the highest office in the land at one point, a social media presence is key for a modern presidential campaign. And the only relevant media platforms he hasn't been banned from is YouTube and TikTok. So although his chances decrease by the day, it is still highly likely that Trump would run again to try to reignite the passionate support base that got him to the presidency in the first place. The best way I could describe President Trump and his social media conflict right now is he was basically shadow banned from running in 2024. He can still run, but it'll be a lot harder than in 2016 and 2020 due to the lack of social media presence he would have. So although it's likely he'll run again, it's also likely that he'll just opt to decline and live the rest of his life out. Another Republican who could potentially run is Josh Hawley, an incoming senator who challenged the outcome of the election in front of the Senate even after the mob riots occurred. Hawley has used elected positions to launch campaigns before. 2 years after becoming the Missouri Attorney General, he launched his bid for the United States Senate and won. So it's not out of the question that he would use his Senate seat to launch a bid for the presidency in 4 years. Another possible candidate is Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas who fought tooth and nail against Trump in the 2016 Republican primary for the Republican nomination, and then defended Trump all throughout his presidency. The only really logical explanation for Cruz staying loyal to Trump to the very end is hoping it will pay off in a 2024 run. We'll see if it paid off in the next couple of years. Nikki Haley and Vice President Mike Pence, who have been critical of Trump during his presidency, are also in prime positions to make a run for the 2024 Republican nomination. However, they're more of the moderate side of the Republican Party who have failed to make an impact in the presidential elections. Both John McCain and Mitt Romney failed to win the presidency in 2008 and 2012, respectively. But Pence and Haley were both part of the Trump administration and could not only draw from the moderate vote, but the votes of people who supported Trump in 2016 and 2020. Pence is more likely to retire from politics in general and would not be likely to make a 2024 run, but Nikki Haley is much more likely to run in the next few years. A loyal Trump fan and U.S. House Representative Matt Gaetz could be primed for a 2024 run, as he is young and already has the support of the Trump base. For example of how supportive he is of Trump and his supporters, look at this speech he made after the riots occurred at the U.S. Capitol.
And when those things are said, people get angry. Now, I know there are many countries where political violence may be necessary, but America is not one such country. Madam Speaker, it was wrong when people vandalized and defaced your home. It was wrong when thugs went to Senator Hawley's home. And I don't know if the reports are true, but the Washington Times has just reported some pretty compelling evidence from a facial recognition company showing that some of the people who breached the Capitol today were not Trump supporters. They were masquerading as Trump supporters, and in fact, were members of the violent terrorist group Antifa. Now, we should seek to build America up, not tear her down and destroy her.
Yeah, this guy is not going anywhere. Other people who have expressed interest in running but will most likely decline are Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Chris Christie. Now, let's get to the Democrats. With Joe Biden being the oldest president in United States history and set to be 82 when his term ends, I personally don't think he's going to run again, so he'll be ruled out from 2024 contention in this video. So that leaves his vice president, Kamala Harris, who is the most likely Democrat to run in 2024, as she did run in 2020 and was actually critical of Joe Biden. If you don't remember, this is what she said to Biden on the debate stage about an issue that hadn't existed for decades.
You also worked with them to oppose busing. And, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. We have to act swiftly. Do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No.
Do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well,
I
there
did
was
not
a
oppose.
failure of states to integrate
No,
public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a
So
local
that's
decision.
where the federal government must step
No,
in.
the
That's why
federal
we have the
government must
Voting
step-
Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of
I
all
have
people.
supported the.
So as you can clearly see, she's the most likely successor to the Democrats heading into election year because she's going to be the vice president and she already has experience in running in presidential elections. But what about the others? Governor of California Gavin Newsom has expressed interest in running. He's been praised and criticized for his response to the coronavirus outbreak in California. He also seems to be a popular contender among Democrats because he's popular and well known. But with Bernie Sanders becoming older and older, who will take his place as the progressive primary champion? She may be just old enough to qualify, but she may be the most likely candidate to take up the progressive helm. People either love her or despise her, and of course, I'm talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. With her House seat not being in any danger at all, she could be primed to make a run for the Democratic nomination in a few years, and being one of the younger and more radical Democrats in the House, she could be the next person to take on the leadership role of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Her loyal following could also help her propel to the amount of support needed to clinch state primaries. And although moderates have beat out the progressives for the nomination the last 2 times, in 2020, progressives gained a lot of momentum in the primaries. Progressives are gaining a lot of momentum, and moderates need to come up with a solution fast on how to please them, or they will be taken over. So like the Democrats in 2020, expect the Republican primaries to be jam-packed with multiple candidates trying to succeed President Trump. And on the Democratic side, expect lesser candidates but more of a fight between the moderate and progressive wings of the party, as new emerging faces could sway the tide of the party entirely. So that's the end of my predictions for the 2024 primary season. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this, and as always, I'll link my Twitter and Discord server in the description below. And as always, I'll see you on the flip side.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Motherfucking boss. Spent most of my weekends cruising above cloud.